Hey, welcome back to Not Your College Life with Lisa Beals. I am your host, Lisa Beals, and this is episode number 55, all about the deadlines. I'm Lisa Beals. I'm the Midwestern mom / college administrator who's done the college thing myself, put a couple kids through school as well, and realized we administrators don't make it easy on students or moms. Lots of bureaucracy, lots of red tape. So I'm here to bridge that gap for you and help you find answers to all of your questions so that you can just focus on coaching that student into a productive, healthy young adult and move on into empty nester syndrome that you deserve. Okay, in this week's episodes, I am talking about deadlines. Now, specifically, I'm going to focus on the deadlines for a new beginner, but many of these will translate into continuing or graduating students, graduating seniors. If you want all the deets, you guys, I have put together a Google Doc and don't be afraid of Google Doc, ladies. You shouldn't be. It's an Excel spreadsheet just in a Google link. But I have a Google Doc that is all of the deadlines. I've got a tab for new beginners. I've got a tab for continuing students, and I have a tab for graduating seniors. So all you have to do is exchange your email with me for the link. And if you want, go to the show notes. You'll find where to sign up to get this Google Doc. But I'm going to give you all the answers, or I'm going to give you all the dates today for new beginners. So if you don't want to give me your email, you can just, write these dates down yourself and give them to your student and tell them, go find these deadlines so that you pay attention and they don't sneak up on you, right? Okay. Okay, so here we go. For your high school senior, first of all, they should have, this is February, they should have already applied. If they're a graduating senior from high school, they should have already applied to at least one college. If you have a junior this year and they're planning to graduate, they're going to be a senior, and your students, if you have a student that's going to be a senior this fall, then they need to mark on their calendar now application season. So most universities turn their applications on around July for the year before. So if I'm going to admit your student for fall of 2022, my application is going to become active July of 2021. That's a lot of forward planning. Okay, so July-ish is when your junior should be looking at applying, starting the application process. There are incentives for early applicants. It's really competitive, though. I'm gonna be honest. Those fall application pools are really competitive. So depending on where your student has their heart set on going, they need to keep that in mind. Insider tip here. If your student has their heart set on a really selective university, have them consider, you're listening? Pay attention. Have them consider attending starting in a spring term. Admission pools for a spring term are traditionally less competitive than a fall applicant pool. I don't know why. Maybe it's just because most students don't want to wait and start in January. Just something to think about. Whether or not your student should go ahead and maybe attend a junior college or a community college the fall term rather than working and saving some money, that is a question for where they plan to apply for spring, right? If they choose to attend someplace in the fall in anticipation of a spring admit, Some universities will consider them a transfer and not a new admit, which could change their status, their eligibility for financial aid, etc. So those are questions your student's going to want to ask. I'm going to apply for spring. Do I need to? How many credits can I take in anticipation of this spring admit and still be considered a new beginner for January? That's a question they want to ask. It's a question they'll want to ask of the admissions office. I think it's a really good idea if your student has their heart set on a really competitive college to consider a spring application instead of a fall application. Okay, so that was a lot to say about the first deadline your student needs to find. So typically they open up in July-ish for fall, and they shut down, unless they're doing a rolling admission, they're going to shut down in December. Depends on what their applicant pool looks like and if they're anticipating meeting or exceeding their application goals. I would not wait much later than December. Those that are entertaining a January admit, they want to ask specifically what those application windows are, start and close, if your student's interested in a January admit. The next deadline is your FAFSA. FAFSA is getting some attention because it's undergoing an overhaul. The jury is still out on if that overhaul is going to actually be meaningful and beneficial to students and families. We'll see. But your FAFSA for the 21-22 school year will open October of 20. So if you have a student getting ready to go to university fall of 21, they should have already completed their FAFSA. If you have a junior that will be a senior this fall, they will want to do their application, their FAFSA, this coming October in anticipation of their acceptance into university for the 22-23 school year. Yes, you have to do it that far in advance. There is incentive for doing it early. There just is. Hopefully it's going to be faster and easier to complete, but the sooner your student can complete the FAFSA, the better off they are financially. Grants, loans, etc. I always plug, even if you do not believe at all your student will be eligible for any aid, still complete the FAFSA. Because many universities with COVID this year had some federal money to hand out, but the first batch in March of 2020-ish, or April, whenever that was, it was earmarked for students that had completed a FAFSA. And so for all you self-pay families that didn't do a FAFSA, you were out of luck, even though you could have certainly benefited from some of that money. What's it hurt? I know some people will say privacy and I don't need the government to know more about me than what they do. But friends, come on. Everything on your FAFSA, they already know because it's tax related. It's your tax returns. How much else are you sharing that they don't already know? It's personal preference. Personal preference. I get it. But I think the trade-off is well worth submitting a FAFSA, even if you're doing self-pay. I just think it's worth the trade-off. Okay, the next deadline your student needs to pay attention to is when is the deadline to accept an offer of admission. So your student applies, they receive the email notification. They should be checking their email regularly, weekly, if not daily. I recommend daily. They should be checking their email for that offer of admission. There is a deadline that comes with that. Typically, May 1 is across the board industry standard industry deadline for a student to accept their offer of admission. May 1 has historically been that date where universities look to get the lock-in so that they know what they should be planning for a fall class. So May 1, absolute latest. Absolute latest. May 1 also corresponds to a student's application for housing. If they want university housing, that usually has to be in place no later than May 1 if they want guaranteed housing. So they need to pay attention to that May 1 date. That is the latest. If they're going to decide ahead of time, great, more power to them. Do it. But May 1 is the latest. Talked about housing. So the next one is advising. Once your student has made a decision on where they want to attend, they need to now reach out to their academic advisor that's been assigned to them to coordinate an advising appointment. If your student is not sure what they're going to talk about, typically an advisor is going to have a set of questions to go through. But if your student has no idea the questions they need to ask, you can go to lisabeals.com/40 questions. I've got a starting point. I have 40 canned questions your student can pick and choose from to start some dialogue with their academic advisor. Okay, the next deadline they want to pay attention to is orientation. This is when they will tour campus. Many times a family member is invited to come. There's a lot of Q&A. There's sometimes registration for the upcoming term. Sometimes they can do an overnight stay in a residential hall. They can get connected with some student organizations and activities. Orientation, if you can afford it, is a great thing to engage in with your student. Next deadline is registration for the summer or fall term. When I say summer, I mean, is there a bridge program that would benefit your student? I am a strong proponent of summer bridge programs, especially for the new beginner. It gives your student an opportunity to get a feel for campus with a smaller number of students on campus. So I work at Purdue. Full disclosure, I work at Purdue. This podcast is not on behalf of Purdue. My oldest daughter went to IUPUI, Indiana University, Purdue University in Indianapolis. They had a great bridge program. But at Purdue, we have over 40,000 students that attend in a spring or fall term. And in the summer, that student population is significantly smaller. That's a good time to jump in, get your feet wet, get acclimated to the university setting, the campus environment, before 40,000 people descend on the campus. And it helps your student develop and assess what their study habits are, which is a whole nother conversation for a future podcast, is your rising seniors' study habits, or lack thereof. Your student then needs to figure out what are the payment dates. When does tuition need to be paid? When's the deadline for you or them to sign up for an installment plan? Who do they need to connect with? Can they assign you as a proxy for their student financials? Is there a deadline to do that? How do they do that? And how do they connect you to those resources? There's also a deadline for your student to accept their financial aid offer. For any of you with a first-gen student, just because the university offers your student money doesn't mean it gets applied to their bill. They have to accept that offer. That's action required by your student. Unless they do that, that money sits out there. My friend Joy, who I've had on a previous podcast, and she's coming back for future ones, she's going to talk about and has webinars about financial aid packages and what they mean and how to discern what a grant versus a loan versus a Parent Plus loan means to your student. Because they don't want to accept something and sign a promissory note that they do not understand the implications are for repayment. Never sign something without understanding what you're agreeing to. So, financial aid, accept or decline. Just because they offer you $7,000 in loans, student, does not mean you should take and accept $7,000 worth of loans. Take what you need. That money, that interest starts accruing as soon as the feds give it to the university for you to pay your bill. You don't even think about that. Just saying. Be intentional about the money you accept. Okay, then, if your student took a dual credit class in high school, so they were taking a high school class that also doubled as dual credit, or sometimes it's called concurrent credit, then your student needs to request that college transcript be sent to the university where they plan to attend, because that credit will not automatically show up at the university that they plan to attend. It has to have that transcript sent from college A, needs to send it to college B, it needs to be evaluated and then loaded onto their transcript as transfer credit. The student needs to initiate that. I always advise the student to bring an unofficial, to have with them when they go to campus, when they meet with their advisor, they should always have an unofficial transcript with them so that their advisor can see what credits they should be seeing on their transcript. Because transfer credit sometimes is a little slow or delayed or backlogged in loading that credit. So for your student's advisor to see that credit, to know what's coming, will be helpful as they're advising what they should take for the fall registration period. Similarly, if your student took an AP credit exam or plans to take the AP credit, they need to make sure the university they are attending or plan to attend is going to receive those test scores. Now, unfortunately, the College Board, which handles the AP credit, for whatever reason, can't get those test scores to the universities until generally late to early July. By then, a healthy number of students have already been advised for fall and selected their fall courses without really knowing with certainty what they scored on their AP tests. So there are some students that will need to modify what they enrolled in the fall based on what their actual AP score was and the credit that resulted for them. Does that make sense? So if I scored a 5 on physics, then I probably got the credit for ABC University. But if I ended up only scoring a 3 on my AP test, I probably didn't get that physics and I need to enroll in it for fall. There's that. Okay, then your student needs to pay attention to move-in dates. So if they're going to be in university housing, cooperative housing, fraternity, sorority, or an apartment, they need to pay attention to what dates are going to be available for them for move-in. Coordinate that with you because you're probably driving them there or flying them there, right? They should be on the lookout for breaks for the fall and spring term. Is there a fall break? Is there Labor Day break? What is Thanksgiving break? When are finals done? When are they free and clear to travel home for the winter break? When do classes start each term? When is spring break? What are the university holidays in the spring and the fall that they do not have to worry about attending class? Breaks are needed for a college student to rest and rejuvenate and fill their cup with things that make them happy and fulfilled. In addition, Mom, isn't it nice to know when you can bother your student and check in to see how they doing? Are they doing something fun besides studying? Okay, other dates to pay attention to are textbooks. When do textbooks go on sale? Rent? When will they be made aware of the required textbooks for each class? That's good to know, right? When do athletic tickets go on sale for those students that are interested in being involved in their university's athletic? Football, basketball, volleyball, whatever. Some have an all sports pass for students, and once they sell out, they sell out. So if your student's interested, they need to find out what those dates are where those tickets go on sale so that they don't miss an opportunity to get involved in some school spirit. If your student is able to and plans to take a car to campus, they need to find out when do parking passes go on sale based on their classification. Meaning, does a freshman get this window and a sophomore get this window and a junior get this window? So they need to pay attention to, investigate and pay attention to those dates so that they don't have to park 3 miles away from their residence hall if they plan to bring their car to campus. They need to learn when do meal plan purchases need to be decided upon and paid for. And when is the last date that they can modify those? Many times that correlates to housing, not always, but it's another date and a deadline that your student needs to be aware of. Here's one many new beginners don't think about, and that is voter registration. This is 2021. We just had a hugely controversial but highly engaging presidential election season. Your student will need to do one of two things before they go to campus. They will need to let their voting registration office know that they will need an absentee ballot so that they can place a vote for the leadership roles in their home community even while they're away at college. Or they can transfer their registration to where they attend school. Why they would want to vote in the community where they're attending school rather than where is home for them, everybody's got their own reasons. I typically recommend your student sign up for absentee voting so they vote where they call home. Here's a big one. Academic calendars and drop and add calendars. These are huge. I'm still amazed at the number of students that don't realize that there's a deadline for dropping a class. That you can drop a class after it started. That there is a refund amount that is associated with when you choose to drop a class. Your student needs to find those dates. The academic calendar will provide a number of them, but they need to specifically be looking for add and drop calendar information as well. That's what most institutions call it. If they're not sure, have them email me. I'll help them find it. And bonus points. Some universities will charge a student if they add or drop courses after the first day of classes. Did you know that? I came from a university that did that. I work at a university currently that does not. Everybody does business differently. I could see the incentive for charging a student for changing their mind. I don't know. There's a lot of add and drop activity during week 1 and 2 of the semester. So that'd be a big money maker at my institution. And I think the ones that charge for it see it that way. Nonetheless, something they need to pay attention to, not just the deadlines, but are there fees associated with those requested changes? All right, and then the last bit is just assignments, tests, quizzes, and finals. Those will come on the syllabus. Your student should be looking at the syllabus as soon as it's available. And I might do a little bonus Facebook Live. You guys let me know. Facebook, Instagram, maybe I'll do it on both. On how I recommend your students manage their assignments with those due dates. I got this, I can't remember where I learned it from, but it's amazing and helpful. So I may do a live later on, and I'll let you guys know ahead of time if I do that. How they take their syllabus, quizzes, assignments, due dates, finals, etc., and create a timeline for themselves so that they can keep track of all of that. Now, full disclosure, many of these deadlines that I just talked about really aren't relevant for you, are they? They're for your student. But in the spirit of transparency and in the spirit of what our goal is as a parent, to coach our student into a self-sufficient adult. If you have a high school senior that is transitioning into college, this would be a great first step for you to share this checklist with them, give them all the dates that they need to pay attention to, and then give them a deadline to find the dates themselves for their chosen university. And then when they come back to you, you guys meet on that agreed upon deadline and say, whatever you can't find, we'll figure out together then. I'm going to challenge you to give it a shot. And then each year, they will develop the skill set and the confidence to find these dates themselves and to recognize how much more empowered and in control they feel about their own lives when they know what these deadlines are, right? They know there's nothing like lurking in the back of them. I was just watching my husband play a video game, and the room was dark, and you just didn't know what was coming up next. And then that zombie's right here behind you, and it just scares the crap out of you. That's an unsettling feeling to not know that something's sneaking up on you. So to empower your student to recognize that feeling of control when they know all of the possible dates and deadlines that they need to pay attention to. And then you don't have to ride their butts all the time because they've got the dates. They just need to say, Mom, this is when I'll be home. And at some point, y'all, they're even going to book their own flights and just let you know when to pick them up. Or they might schedule their own Uber. It's coming. It's coming. And you'll just reap the benefits of having a fully functioning, self-sufficient adult that will come home and say, thanks, Mom. You did a good job. They may not use those words, but you'll know it. High five, Mama. All right, you guys, I hope this episode was helpful. And if you have a friend that you know could benefit from this, I'm going to ask, share this with them. Would you please give them a share? And also, I'm not sorry to ask, but I could use a review on the iTunes. So if you don't mind, go to the iTunes and give this girl a review. I would love 5 stars. I would love 5 stars, but I think I've said it before, you can give me less than 5 stars as long as you give me some feedback, right? What can I do to improve that will help me earn 5 stars? And did you know that when you give me a review and subscribe on whatever podcast app you're listening to, it tells the app that I'm producing information that people need to hear. So if you know of someone that needs to hear it, subscribe, give me a review so that the podcast app can tell other people in addition to you. All right, friends, I always appreciate the time you spend with me. I know you're very, very busy, and so I do not take it lightly that you carve time out of your day to spend with me. So thank you so much. Until next week, you guys, take care.